This painting is by the British artist Jessica Dismorr. She painted it in 1938. It is usually called Superimposed Forms, and that is the title I will use here, although its original title may have been Superposed Forms. This may well have been the last painting Dismorr created. It was certainly the last she exhibited publicly at the Artists' International Association in August 1939. At the end of that month, on 29th August 1939, she took her own life. Jessica Dismorr was born in 1885 in Gravesend in Kent and studied at the Slade School of Art and in Paris. For the rest of her career she divided her time between Britain and France, and French influences were always strong in her work. She was a key figure in British avant-garde art in the first decades of the 20th century, and was involved in almost every advanced artistic grouping from around 1910 to her death. Particularly notable was her contribution to vorticism. Superimposed Forms is, as I said at the beginning, a very late work, marking the climax of a period beginning in the mid-1930s, in which Dismorr had turned entirely to abstraction. She had painted in abstract styles early in her career, but the influences that had been strongest in her work were Fauvism, Vorticism, and, to some degree, Cubism. During the 1930s, Dismorr became associated with more radical movements in British art, both artistically and politically, through connections with figures such as Barbara Hepworth, Henry Moore, and Ben Nicholson, and groupings such as the Artists' International Association. The first wholly abstract exhibition to be held in Britain, the Unit 1 exhibition of 1934, had a particularly strong impact on Dismorr's work, directly inspiring her to abandon figurative art and commit to abstraction. Superimposed Forms is painted in tempera, on board, treated with gesso, and, as with most of Dismorr's works, is not particularly large in size, 46 centimetres high by 61 centimetres wide. Against a sandy-coloured background, two groupings of forms are placed, one in the left and one in the right half of the canvas. There is also a narrow strip of darker colour running along the right-hand edge of the picture. The colours are subdued in tone and limited in range, perhaps 4 or 5 shades of sandy or earthy browns, some light, some dark. On this flat plane are arranged two-dimensional forms of unvariegated colour, painted with no suggestion of depth or texture. They fall, as I've already said, into two groupings, but they can be further grouped on the basis of colour and shape into 3 pairs, 2 mid-toned shield or arch shapes, with 2 more curvaceous and differentiated forms, lighter and creamier in colour, imposed upon them, and finally a pair of darker and, in shape, more complex forms overlaid over both. The forms are painted to indicate degrees of translucence, providing a visual expression of the superposed or superimposed part of the title. Where they appear to overlie each other, the value of the colour changes. The forms are hard-edged, clear in outline, and fill most of the painting's surface. Outwardly simple in form, they are subtle in their contours and combinations of straight and curved boundaries, and seem to gain more complexity as each successive pair overlies the other. Dismorr's friends apparently called these shapes dress patterns, but they also relate to sculptural forms, reflecting Dismorr's familiarity with Hepworth and Moore. They do not depict anything, but they do evoke associations within the viewer's mind with human or organic forms, such as heads, torsos, or the trunks of trees. Inherent to this freely suggestive visual language is a liberation from concepts of three-dimensional space within which the physical forms depicted by the artist are fixed. Instead, flat forms, floating, unfixed, in undefined space, are the key elements of Dismorr's later abstract works. A comparison of Superimposed Forms of 1938 with her abstract composition of 1915 reveals the revolution Dismorr's work has undergone. The earlier work is titled Abstract Composition, but has still a representational character. It comes from Dismorr's Vorticist period, and Vorticism was ultimately representational. It is three-dimensional in nature, concerned with intersections of forms in space. It has energy and movement. The composition itself denies and challenges the flat nature of the painted surface. This has all changed by 1938. The flat painted surface seeks to be nothing more than a flat painted surface, but in freeing itself from implied three-dimensionality, it becomes infinite space. No depth might just as well be endless depth. The forms in Superimposed Forms do not intersect with one another, creating the illusion of three dimensions and pushing at the boundaries of the picture plane, but float freely in undefined and limitless space, and seem constantly to shift and reform, suggesting fluidity, mutability, ambiguity, and open-endedness. Following her death in 1939, Jessica Dismorr was largely forgotten, and was in some respects, for example in her contribution to Vorticism, deliberately marginalized. Yet, as paintings such as Superimposed Forms show, she was at the forefront of the advanced art of her era, creating works vibrant with visual poetry, and asking questions of the medium of painting, which abstract artists would still be grappling with 20 years later.